the historic route through town. We'll talk to connectivity pathways to different points in the community. The other one might talk to the biking routes and the connectivity to the bike routes throughout the community and the region. And then on the opposite side, the street side, viewed from here and from here, it's actually on the back side of what I'm showing, but that's taller and then more directional orientation type information for the traveler that's in the vehicle. It's higher, it's above what might be even this roof type element that kind of provides both lighting and cover for the pedestrian side. There may be an opportunity to incorporate the rotary symbol within it. Symbolically, we think that you could have some uplight on something like that. You could have downlights from the roof covering. So that it didn't compete with the placement of the sculpture that would be donated. We also think that sculpture may be most appropriate right here on that east end entrance to the court. Centered through it here, and is it life size?
Yeah, it is life size.
5 feet.
It's 5 feet tall.
Yeah, so
on
it's
a pedestal, it's life size.
pretty much life size, and we thought that it should be pulled back some from the street, again, on the route of the pedestrians, so that they see it, it's within their scale. It's a little bit easier to relate to. The other thing we thought was an important orientation was that this iconic element is on an orientation to the historic sculpture of the trappers and stuff across the way. This element that you see here is like a planter type barrier. So if this project gets to move forward in this kind of a fashion, WSDOT will have some influence on how it's ultimately laid out. If these are the designated crosswalk routes, they don't want people doing this or this. So we'll create a barrier there. Planter, say on the street side, that might come up to a wall, curved wall through here, and then mounted on that wall could be, I think it'll hold. I think it just slipped on that plastic. So mounted on the sidewalk side of that wall that might be about this high might be these historical or cultural plaques that start to illustrate and tell the story of Colville's heritage all through here.
So a question, where would those plaques be readable from? The street side or the sidewalk?
Sidewalk side.
Okay.
So there would be space between that wall and then this element. So this view is kind of from back here looking that way. You walk around that side of it, and now you can use these interpretive panels through here. And this comes from one of the comments earlier today that said maybe this is the jump off point as well for the historic walk. So maybe one of these panels talks about those elements within Colville. So on the pedestrian level side, or on the pedestrian level, back here, you could also continue those historic panels. Now they're vertical and they kind of wrap around the backside of something like that. So those, and maybe the start of the historic walk gives you directions in which way to move to experience that historic walk. So
just a couple things there just for clarity purposes. The crosswalk on the south going east and west doesn't exist.
here,
Right, there's no crosswalk there, so that wall you have with information planners actually could extend down and discourage people from crossing there.
would there be no reason to incorporate a crosswalk there?
No, we went through that with WSDOT, and because of the turning motions there, they're not into that there. And the other thing is, WSDOT has a project where they're improving ADA ramps throughout town, and they're currently surveying, and we'll be doing that in the near future. So if we have schemes like this, we need to have a conversation with them so things are coordinated
Well, the great thing about this type of a speed table arrangement is that the ramps are no longer needed on these locations.
Right, exactly what I'm getting at.
So maybe that's a further discussion of how this might ultimately be established.
Well, they also have an overlay plan just in the travel lanes next year. And so that also might be the time to try to implement this speed rate.
I've heard it mentioned by a few people that there has been conversation of taking off Astor right there, making it so that's a right turn only.
There has been conversation by some people, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, if that's still being talked about, I would think that would make, and I don't know, I guess I should ask, would that make it so that we could then have that other crosswalk if they go ahead with that right turn only on Astor?
It's kind of a can of worms. We've gone through all that, and yeah, there's discussion, because no matter what you do, everybody's not happy.
Right, yeah, of course.
So I don't think there's a serious discussion going right now, different people have opinions.
Okay.
I'm sure those would be issues that get flushed out if something like this were to move forward.
Sure.
So you see that I'm also suggesting that I think there's, at least because of this increase in space, there may be the opportunity to introduce some street trees out here, but still maintaining the opening and the views into this pretty open. You also see that by the way we would place them, that instead of being just in line to where they may block the view on the north down here, that we'd swing them back a little bit to maintain the presence of that element.
There's some issues. Some of the businesses don't, sometimes you get too many trees and it blocks the views of their businesses.
Yes,
and that
there's
doesn't go
signs
over-
and something like that.
That doesn't go over too well.
Again, probably whether it goes there, or whether there's any at all, probably ends up being a detailed type of location discussion. You can see that we're showing some opportunities to consider what the pavement pattern or the pavement materials might be like. And we've just put this crosshatch in there to indicate that we think that's a critical part of how you might redevelop the court and how it might extend out. I do think that some sort of a diagonal pattern through the court might be an interesting